divina, tu che m'hai preso il cuore, non sai che il canto d'un violin può far di un sogno.
Giuliano Gozi, a forgotten figure in the annals of history. Since the end of World War II, his name has languished in irrelevance. However, I think it would be important to remember the life of Gozi. For 20 years, he presided over the Italian micronation of San Marino, the oldest republic in history. Gozi is very obscure, and little is known about him personally, but after hours of research, reading, and learning about the complex governmental system of San Marino, I am confident that this will be the most in-depth video on YouTube regarding Giuliano Gozi and the San Marinese fascist party. Gozi was born on the 7th of August, 1894. His parents seem to be unknown, but what we do know was that he was born into the city of San Marino. Not much is known about his upbringing, but what we do know is that when Gozi turned 18 in 1914, he began attending the University of Bologna to study law until 1914. The next year, in 1915, Gozi obtained his bachelor's degree of law and subsequently joined the Royal Italian Army. In 1915, he was deployed into the Valle de Boite and the Tofane as a member of the Alpini. The Alpini is an infamous Italian infantry organization that specializes in mountain warfare, notorious in World War I for their contribution to the Italian front. Gozi seemed to be a dedicated and valiant soldier, as his contributions in 1915 earned Gozi the Bronze Medal of Military Valor, an esteemed Italian medal that is awarded to soldiers who show great gallantry in battle. However, Gozi's military talent did not end there. In 1916, Gozi was promoted to lieutenant and participated in the suppression of the anti-war riots of Turin in 1917. Gozi was soon returned to the Italian front in November of 1917, following the Italian loss at the Battle of Caporetto. Gozi was placed into the Pasubio battalion of the Alpini and participated in the Battle of Monte Grappa against Austria-Hungary and Germany. This battle was an Italian victory, and the Central Powers surrendered to the Allied powers, which included Italy a year later, in 1918, sending many Italians home, including Gozi, who returned to San Marino. Gozi's military career was very impressive. By the time Giuliano Gozi's service was over, he had earned the Gold Medal of Military Valor, which was given for deeds of outstanding gallantry in war, Silver Medal of the Italian Red Cross, Silver Medal of the Republic of San Marino, and the Allied Victory Medal. On the 30th of April, 1918, Gozi was granted the posts of Secretary of Foreign Affairs in San Marino and Secretary for the Interior, which gave him control over the cabinet, military, and police of San Marino. Please keep in mind that at this time he was not the leader of San Marino. He likely obtained this position because Gozi had a self-described distinguished family of San Marino. After the end of World War I and the Vittoria Mutilata of Italy, many Italians were dissatisfied with the results of the war and the state of post-war Italy. The Italian people had toiled and fought for 4 difficult years, only to be awarded with the highest level of disrespect from their so-called allies. As a consequence, civil unrest and extremism in Italy rose significantly. Many revolutionaries were born from this era, one of these being Benito Mussolini.
Ora io ti domando, e ti
desiderati degli onori e le ricompense, la vita comoda e disse per voi l'impossibile. Quali sono le tre parole che fanno per il nostro dogma? Ebbene, camerati, in queste tre parole tu è e sarà il segreto di ogni vittoria.
From 1919 to 1922, Benito Mussolini founded and solidified his ideology, which he named Fascismo, which means bundle of sticks, meant to reference how together we are strong through the use of analogy. Mussolini's Il Partito Nazionale Fascista began rising in Italy during this period. Gozi saw merit in this ideology, and on the 10th of August 1922, the San Marinese Fascist Party was founded. 3 months later, on October 27th through to October 31st, Mussolini called for the fascist paramilitary, which was named the Black Shirts, to march on Rome following the election of a socialist government. This march was a success, and Benito Mussolini was given the Prime Minister role of Italy from the King. The situation in San Marino was tense. Political dissent from all sides were rising, and it is even suggested by historians that San Marino got close to a civil war in the year of 1921 due to this alone. Due to the sheer amount of civil unrest and disorder, the government introduced significant media censorship for 6 months and a carabinieri garrison to restore order. The San Marinese Fascist Party used violence and intimidation extensively against their political opponents, most significantly the socialists, due to their rise in Italy during this time. They also founded their newspaper in 1922, named Il Popolo Sammarinese. This newspaper was based on Il Popolo d'Italia, which was founded by Mussolini and was used to promote the PNF. The San Marino Fascist Party was not focused on unique ideas, and they stuck closely to their Italian fascist counterparts in terms of policy. However, the party did focus on San Marino's industrialization as an effort to lead San Marino away from an agrarian economy. Before I can continue explaining, I must give context about the strange leadership policy of San Marino. Most countries merely have one leader, but San Marino has two, with the titles of Captain Regent, so you can see how politics can get confusing in this country. Having explained that, on the 4th of March 1923, the San Marino General Election began to elect the 7th term of the Grand and General Council, which is the name of the San Marinese Parliament of 60 members who are elected for a 5-term year. The 1923 general election is what people would call a snap election, which is essentially an election that is called earlier than the one that has been scheduled for one reason or another. The reason that the snap election was called is because on January 27th, 1923, the old council was forcibly disbanded by Italian fascist influence. The parties participating in this election were obviously the San Marinese fascists, but due to the socialists refusing to participate in the election due to fascist influence, the fascists were in a group called the Patriotic Bloc. The other main parties were the San Marinese People's Party, a Christian democratic party, and the San Marinese Democratic Union, the previous party of San Marino, which was a classically liberal conservative party, funnily enough, ran by Manillo Gozi. There is not much evidence to suggest this, but the Gozi family was a distinguished family of San Marino, according to Gozi, which could mean that Manillo and Giuliano Gozi are related. The last group associated with the Patriotic Bloc was the fascist puppet named Volunteers of War. Very little is known about this faction, unfortunately. Threats by Italian fascists prevented any opposition presence, so the bloc won all the seats to the Grand and General Council. 1,437 votes for the Patriotic Bloc caused the coalition to win 100% victory for the election. the San Marinese Fascist Party then held 29 out of 60 seats, which was undoubtedly huge for the party. Gozi, who would be 29 at this time, became the first fascist captain regent in April of 1923 due to this major control. Gozi and his party intended to dismantle the reforms of the meeting of 1906, which was the first meeting that began San Marinese democracy. Other policies that were implemented after this were as follows. The March on Rome was listed as an official holiday, a San Marinese Carabinieri Corps was created, and the captains of the castles of San Marino became appointed by the captain regents. The fascist control over San Marino was strong even after Gozi was forced to exit his role of captain regent in October of 1923. Keep in mind that even during this time, he was still Secretary of Foreign Affairs in San Marino and Secretary for the Interior, which gave him control over the cabinet, military, and police of San Marino. He was also able to control the elections and essentially make a one-party state. With both captain regents being fascist, the ball was in the fascist's court. Gozi seemed to be a common surname. It is worth mentioning that other people with the Gozi last name served as captain regent from 23 to 26. Evidence of this being with Girolamo Gozi, who served in October of 1924, and Manilo Gozi, who served in April of 1926. From 1923 to 1926, out of all 12 captain regents who served at this time, each of them were involved with Giuliano Gozi and would take orders from him and the San Marinese party. In October of 1926, Gozi served again as captain regent along with Ruggero Mori. The party significantly improved infrastructure and introduced factory work to the nation. Things remained as normal, however. Gozi still had his secretary roles and control over San Marino, even as his puppet captain regents went and left, but his control started to slip. Dissent was forming. Gozi's regime was in peril. Independent politicians continue to form a majority in the Grand and General Council. Gozi took note of this, and in 1932, serving with Pompeo Righi, he was elected and put a stop to the freedom of control that his opponents had by force. But this was not the end of Gozi's troubles. A fellow San Marinese fascist by the name of Ezio Balducci began forming his own faction within the San Marinese Fascist Party. Gozi began discussing with and taking advice from the PNF due to this development, which most likely influenced his thinking and decision-making in the months to come. Gozi then ended his service as captain regent in October of 1932. Later that year, Balducci's faction began their own newspaper, which was titled La Voce del Titano, which translates to the Voice of the Titan. In 1933, Balducci was accused of plotting a coup against Giuliano Gozi and the San Marinese Fascist Party due to the contents of the newspaper. Balducci, in a panic, fled to Rome, where he was then arrested by Italian authorities. Balducci and his faction were officially banned from the party, and they were sentenced to hard labour in 1934. This put their faction to an end, and Gozi became highly respected within his party, but feared by enemies. San Marino was saved, and the previously cloudy skies brightened for Gozi.
Il tamburo lontano rullerà, se le trombe squillino, gridino, chiamino, se poi come tuon echeggerà il cannone, si troverà ben pronti per marciare.
It is not clear what happened in the 3 years between 34 and 37 in San Marino. But what did happen is that Italy began shifting towards a state of war and the recent Italian invasion of Ethiopia. San Marino was one of the first nations to recognize King Victor Emmanuel III as Emperor of Ethiopia in 1936 after the Italian victory. Gozi served again as Captain Regent from the 1st of April 1937 to the 1st of October 1937, serving with Settimio Belluzzi. In the last 15 years, San Marino had improved drastically. It had industrialized and was starting to become less reliant on agriculture. It had vastly better infrastructure to help with tourism, and it had the guidance of a strong leader. But things were about to go downhill because in 1939, World War II officially began. On the 17th of September, 1940, the American newspaper The Times had published that San Marino had declared war on the United Kingdom. Pandemonium ensued, and San Marino quickly issued a statement to Britain that they had not declared war. Despite their neutrality, life at this point was turbulent, and the future was uncertain. Gozi, who saw the need to become Captain Regent for the fifth and final time, was elected on the 1st of October 1941 and served until the 1st of April 1942, serving with Giovanni Lonfernini. During the service, Gozi enacted Racial Law No. 33 on September 17, 1942, inspired by the Italian racial laws of 1938, which were inspired by one fascist philosopher called Julius Evola. A video about him will come out sometime soon, maybe in the next few months, so please stay tuned for that, because Evola's story and his philosophy is really interesting. This law prohibited marriage between the San Marinese and foreigners or Jews, but in both the countries of Italy and San Marino, these laws were not really enforced. Sometime after these laws, specifically in 1943, the San Marinese public became weary about the ongoing war, and these feelings reached an all-time high after a series of events led to a collapse on July 25th, 1943, when a major betrayal took place. On this day, July 25th, 1943, the Grand Council of Fascism voted Mussolini out, effectively abdicating him. Following this, the Kingdom of Italy arrested Mussolini and began having discussions with the Allies. This led to events in the future, such as the Italian Civil War between the fascists and the monarchy, which saw the Italian Social Republic birth. However, how did this affect San Marino? Due to the events on the 25th, on the 28th, Gozi's rule slipped and collapsed due to the surrounding Italian control. Declared neutrality in the war after Gozi's abdication. But the new San Marino Fascist Party was still alive and had support. Gozi was unwilling to quit, and on April 1st, 1944, the party regained power when Sanzio Valentini and Francesco Balsimelli were elected as the Captain Regents. However, Gozi would not have the same control as he once had. His position as Secretary of Foreign Affairs and Secretary of the Interior were taken away from him during the first PFS collapse on July 20th, 1943. During the second control, the Italian Civil War officially began, and on June 26th, 1944, San Marino was subject to a bomb raid from the British Royal Air Force. The justification used by the British was that San Marino had been overrun by German forces and was being used to amass stores and ammunition, which is, to be fair, not very likely considering the size of San Marino. I mean, have you seen it? It's tiny. The San Marinese government denied this fervently and claimed that Britain had violated their neutrality. On the 15th of September, 1944, German and North Italian forces were granted entry into San Marino to defend the kingdom from the Allies. The British Indian Army was commanded into the battle that would soon take place in San Marino. Things were looking grim. On the 17th, the battle officially began when Allied troops crossed the Milano River and attacked at Montepulito near Faetano. On the 18th, Allied forces arrived in the northern outskirts of San Marino. On the 19th, the Allies pushed even further into northern San Marino. On the 20th, Axis forces had held back the Allies on the northwestern half of San Marino. But the Allies secured San Marino in the afternoon, and on the 21st, the German, Italian and San Marino forces could no longer hold out and were eliminated by the British Army. San Marino's fascist government would then of course collapse and be taken out of power once again. The new San Marinese government was put in place, and San Marino sided with the Allies. This was the end for the San Marinese Fascist Party.
Bimba mia, sei un vero fiore di leggiadria, ma non vuoi capire tu cos'è amore, tu mi fai soffrire questo mio cuore, non vuoi capire. Oh Catalinetta bella, non vorrei restar di tella, tu non conosci cose ancora. Quali dolcezze dall'amor. Quando avrai la testa bianca e di tutto sarai stanca, rimpiangerai tu questi dì. Oh mia bella Catalinetta.
Giuliano Gozi did not die directly after the war. He died in 1955. Disrespected, unknown, with no glory left. But that does not mean that he never did anything. His impact has been felt by tens of thousands of San Marinese residents over the past 78 years. His industrialization has modernized the country completely and brought it into the 20th century. His reforms brought cultural rebirth to San Marino, and really, I think that is what is important. God bless you all. Thank you for watching.
Non vorrei restar di tella, tu non conosci cose ancora. Quali dolcezze dall'amor. Quando avrai la testa bianca e di tutto sarai stanca, rimpiangerai tu questi dì. Oh mia bella Catalina.